Jason, welcome to the podcast. I got to open up and ask, why did some loan officers not grow last year when you in St. Louis, Missouri grew from 59 million to 73 million? It's a 23% growth. What do you think the key difference was?
First and foremost, thank you for having me on the pod. It's my first time on a podcast. I'm very excited. I think the key difference between growing and not growing is whether or not you adapted and evolved to the market, right? I think a lot of what happened in 21 and 22 and even in 2023 was things were getting more and more competitive. And so we evolved and figured out ways to win. And after we figured out ways to win, our competition caught up. And so we evolved further and we figured out how to coach our clients how to win. Because I think that's like the next step in the evolution is the education and the transparency behind the process. With information so readily available online, I think it's really important to be that beacon of education. And again, like transparency, like I said, teaching people and showing people through screen sharing, Zooming, all the stuff that makes clients comfortable, connecting and building trust.
So you use the word competitive when winning right off the bat. You came and spoke at my Slay with Shay event in November. I was begging you to come in May, but you had some wild golf, epic adventure. You're an avid golfer. By the way, how many days a week are you golfing right now in the winter?
0, and it's miserable. I'm like doing lessons for 30 minutes inside in a simulator, and it's like barely scratching the itch. I'm going to Dallas a few days early for our leadership summit to play a couple rounds, and then I'm going to Florida for 10 days in March. So hopefully I'll get to play some golf before.
Okay, we're going to get you going. And in the summer, how often do you prefer playing golf?
As many days a week as I can. I don't really play on weekends. I don't really play when I'm home with my wife and daughter. I just play like during the day because I'm working a lot at night. So I spend like many days of the week playing golf.
Let's just talk about working at night. What does that mean? What do your typical hours look like? When do you meet with realtors? When do you meet with clients? How does that go?
So I have a rule that I meet with realtors in person only because over Zoom, they're second screening you, just not as authentic. And I can't really like capture their attention as effectively. And so I meet with real estate agents in person, usually coffee, lunch, drinks occasionally, but I prefer to meet with realtors like beginning of my day when I'm the sharpest. And then for clients, I'm meeting with every single client. I think, I've been in the business for 13 years. I shaved yesterday, so I know I look 15 years old, but I've been in the business for a really long time for a 37-year-old guy. And for years, I've had colleagues tell me, you've got to meet with every client. And these were like the top producers of top producers, the upper echelon saying, you got to meet with clients. And I was this young, cocky kid. And I always thought, I think that's inefficient. That's not the best use of my time. And I can tell you, as I've aged, I was wrong, 100% wrong. And I've decided to meet with every client because it's so effective at earning business and keeping business and, winning, which is a huge part of my business. I don't even know if I answered your question, but
what does your evenings look like? You said you work nights.
Evenings look like. So clients, I'm happy to meet them during the day if they can, but I'm no stranger to clients needing to meet at night when they are not working. I always say nobody buys houses from 9 to 5. And so it became really important for me to be available. I was taking calls anyway. So I thought if I can just be a little bit more proactive instead of reactive, that I can save myself some time and actually give myself time back during the day, which, means I get to go to my daughter's stuff at her school, or I get to take my wife out for lunch, or I get to go play 100 rounds of golf a year. And so my daughter, luckily, she's like almost 8 years old. She'll be 8 by the time this podcast comes out, I'm sure. And she goes to bed at like 7:30 p.m. every night. And so at 7:35, I'm on Zoom 2 to 4 nights a week, especially when it's cold, closer to 4 nights. And I'm educating my clients on the process. And I'm not teaching them Mortgage 101. I'm teaching them my process on how to win.
So let's just dive right in there, because you started your first 8.5 years in this business as a LOA and then a junior LO. And then it was in 2021 that you jumped out to be your own loan officer, to build your own team. And I remember having a conversation with you a year ago, and I'm like, dude, I'm watching you, and I'm watching you continue to win President's Club and to grow. And you write songs and perform songs on stage at our Guild National Summits. And you're just a dynamo. And I want to know, like, what is your secret? Like, why do you keep growing the way you do? what works for you, and tell them what you shared with me.
About the winning part or
Yeah.
part? Oh, well, I think you'll have to know this about me is I really, really, really hate to lose. And normally I can't say that without swearing, but I really hate losing. And so in 2022, it was uber competitive and rates were climbing. And I started like really hating competing against 10 to 20 offers. Competing against 10 to 20 offers when you're 100% commission is a really difficult way to make a living. And so I made a choice in that moment. How do you compete in this market? And realtors were panicked because it was kind of before we figured out like no showings till Friday, offers due on Sunday. Before that all worked itself out, realtors were nervous and they were looking to us, their referral partners, for help. And so I think we're more organized from a business perspective than most of our realtor partners. And so we devised a way to win, and we started really analyzing the process. How can we help? What can we do to be different? And how can we stand out? Because, the other thing that was happening is as rates were rising, was all these real estate agents were getting calls. So I became the guy that was coaching real estate agents on how to win, instead of the guy who's just begging for business all the time and getting desperate, right? I was adding value that isn't like, hey, I want to buy Zillow leads with you, or hey, I want to throw money at all of your things. I'm giving them real tangible value that they can go take into the field and will help them earn more money, which is what all of our goals are.
So we're going to break this down. This is going to be a masterclass from Jason on how he does this, how he does the meetings, and it'll be very tactical. You'll probably want to listen to this several times. I want to start all the way back at the beginning. Yeah. You are a loan officer breaking out on your own now. You're now 100% commission only. You eat what you kill. You're the rainmaker. You got to step it up and somehow make it rain to a degree that's going to support your family. And I know you brought your best friend along to start this journey with you. So you're calling me as a realtor. Are you cold calling me? Are you getting referred into me? Is this someone you've known as an LOA? I was a listing agent. Like, what does that call look like? And what are you asking for to get the meeting?
So I think this conversation evolves over time. But for me at first, it started with whoever would answer my call, because when I started doing this process, it started working really well. And so I would call whatever real estate agent I could, and I would just say, hey, this is Jason Jacobs with Guild Mortgage. I'm having a ton of success winning in a really competitive market right now. I would love to talk to you about that. Are you open to meeting for coffee for 15 or 20 minutes?
Could you really meet with somebody for 15 to 20 minutes?
Yeah, I was just about to say, I've never had a meeting last less than 30 minutes. I just say it so that they're a little more open to it. Because if you're like, hey, I want 45 minutes of your time, they're a little less willing to sit down with you.
Okay. And so pretty much everybody that sits down with you after 15 minutes is still so intrigued that they stay longer.
Well, yeah, I think I have it down to a science now and how I talk about it. And the beauty of my pitch, which I think it's important to note for people who are listening, like my pitch is going to be different than everybody else's pitch. But if you're looking to bring a solid pitch into a meeting, the most important thing you can have is an outline of what that pitch looks like so that the conversation's free to flow however it needs to. That all you have to do is go back to what your outline is to make sure that the conversation gets back to the information that you're trying to cover. And so that's something I devised really, really early with coaching. Coaching helped me with that.
What I love about your script is that you said, I'm having a ton of success right now. So how much success did it take for you to go, I'm going to blow this up. I'm going to sing from the tops of the roof. I'm going to get on a bullhorn and tell everybody about it. Like, I think a lot of people think they've got to wait until they've closed 20 million to be justified to coach agents, or they've got to wait till they're a $50 million producer. I want to know your psyche as you're breaking out, you're going out there. How much success did you have before you claimed I'm having a ton of success and just rampant with this?
That's a really good question. I think I was very lucky to come off the years of 2020 and 2021 with a ton of volume from a refinance perspective, but really only about 100 purchases each of those years. I have been blessed to work with people I know, like, and trust my whole career. And there's a guy I work with here locally who was doing about 50 real estate transactions a year, probably like 25 million in production, St. Louis jumbos. And we both hate losing, and he's really competitive. So we were kind of devising this plan and process together. And it's since evolved. He's actually left the business and gone back to being a teacher.
Wow.
But I found out it was working with Kevin, the real estate agent. And so I was trying to tell every other real estate agent that I knew, this works. Come work with me. And so I think just having a little bit of success, winning a contract, being the best offer out of 20 offers, that's enough, I think, to give you confidence that your process is working.
Well, I really hope that the listener hears that, because I think so often we judge our success and we second guess ourselves, and we think it needs to be repeated 5 or 6 or 8 or 22 times. And we live in this fear of like, well, can I really do it again tomorrow? I just had a $2 million month, but was that a fluke? I just got 50 leads 2 months in a row, but could it possibly happen again? And what I hear you saying, Jason, is that you've been methodical about being strategic, having a process, and then seeing how the process works. And I think that's what brings you confidence, is because you are intentional about what you're doing. There's nothing that drives me crazy more than when I sense like somebody playing small instead of owning their success. Like I have a buddy of mine who sells real estate in the Bay Area. He's in Napa Valley, and he every single year has had a bigger and bigger and bigger year. He's crushing it, but he plays this humble card of like, oh, I know, I can't believe it. Can you believe it, Shay? It's another, like, whoa, I just can't. I'm like, all right, now you're pissing me off. Like, this has been 15 years in a row of you succeeding. It's time for you to own your success. Yes, remain humble. Yes, remain grateful and eager, because the minute that you are no longer grateful and you expect it and you're sitting back on your heels, you're toast. But own that you do the right things. You stand by your client. You have high integrity. Your processes actually create winning results. And now blow it up. Now market that. Now tell people, I've got a process for you. So now let's run through what the outline of the meeting looks like. You've called me. You've told me you've had a ton of success. And I say, yeah, I want to know how to win in this market. And we sit down. What does that outline look like?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And you've actually helped me kind of understand kind of the power of my messaging and my outline, because we were talking about this, I think, some time ago when you had asked me to come to Slay with Shay and I was going on my golf trip. And you said, and maybe it was during our video that we did on the All Access call, but you were asking me about how I talk to real estate agents. And the way that I speak to real estate agents is in terms that they understand. I think that we often fall into this trap when we feel like we're competing for business of talking to sound the smartest in the room. And I think if you can change that modus operandi into, see what I did there? Like using the smart words. If you can change that into, how do we educate these people? How do they take away the most amount of information in the fastest amount of time? Then it really changes things. So I speak to real estate agents in terms that they understand. And I talk about the contract, the sales contract, and the things that I can help them with within the sales contract to safely remove contingencies without taking on risk. And that's the way that I present it to them. And so I go through I'm sure there's a million contingencies, but I go through 4 major contingencies that I have prepared information to talk about. The home sale contingency, for one, the financing contingency, inspections contingency, and appraisal contingency. And that's the outline for my meeting. Because guess what? If Mr. Realtor wants to tell me about his 4 kids and their ages and names, I can listen to that. And I know which contingency I left off on. There's only 4 things I have to remember. So that conversation goes really smoothly. We talk about whatever. And then I'm like, well, so let's just go back to that contract. Remember, we're trying to frame this as a way to win without taking on risk. And that works well for me.
So, and I've heard you say this to borrowers. In fact, I asked Jason for a recorded pre-approval meeting, because he does all these meetings on Zoom, many times at 7:30 p.m. And he's gone golfing. He's been with his daughter. He's kissed his daughter goodnight. And now he's doing pre-approvals. And this behavior, by the way, helped you close 261 loans in 2024. Okay. You're dealing with an average loan size of 280,000. So you have said these words over and over and over ad nauseum, hundreds of times, both to the real estate agent and the client. So can you just pretend I'm the client right now and have this little educational process around these 4 buckets?
Absolutely. So usually we kick it off with like, hi, how are you? Tell me about you guys. What's the best way I can help? I love an open-ended question at the beginning. I always start with answering the client's questions, and inevitably they're always about rates or products. And so I'll actually share my screen and do some education on how the rate sheet works. I love to tell clients that they get to pick the rate. I don't make the rates, but here's the rates. Which one do you want? Here's what it means. Here's how much each one costs. I think clients have a misconception, and they do have a misconception, but when you show them the full rate sheet, it takes away the power of what's your rate. So we have those conversations first. And then I tell them, and this is true, I'm one of the best in the country. I helped over 260 people finance their homes last year. And I did that through using my process. And I'd like to spend some time talking about my process with you, if you're open to that, so that I can help you buy the house that you want to buy. My job is to help you win in this process. I don't think my job is to give you a rate. And so then you're not going to believe this, I take the clients through the exact same 4 contingencies that I take the real estate agents through, probably in a little bit more simplified language, in words that they can understand. But it's the same conversation I'm having with real estate agents, just meant for clients. So I teach them about the home sale contingency. I know we were supposed to role play this, but
no, it's fine. This is good.
Yeah, I teach them about the home sale contingencies and how clients often, tailor it to their needs. If they're first-time home buyers, I'd say, the first contingency is the home sale contingency. And the beauty of it is you're a first-time home buyer, so you don't need this home sale contingency. So just by showing up to our meeting tonight, I've made you more competitive. Congratulations. And, just disarm them with humor. Then I teach them about the financing contingency and why it's important that we pre-underwrite your file and issue a full loan approval so we can do the things that Guild guarantees, which are we can guarantee your earnest money up to $5,000. We can guarantee your inspection fees up to $1,000. And we can close in 17 days or less. And buyers, the only buyers that want 17-day closings are living with their mother-in-law right now, but sellers love fast closings. So we need to be able to offer that if we want to win. My job is to help you win. Then I teach them about inspections. And I know I'm not the inspections expert. Just giving them some sort of overview on inspections makes it so much more easy for them to feel confident when they're actually doing an inspection notice with their real estate agent. It's not the first time they've heard about it. I loathe the idea of a client having to learn about a concept and then make a decision about that same concept in the same moment. So I'm trying to just prepare them and educate them and be transparent, like I said, with the screen sharing on the rates. So I teach them about inspections, talk about the window of time. Usually you have 5 to 14 calendar days, depends on the market that you're in. And then I teach them about the appraisal and what the risks are for not having an appraisal contingency or having an appraisal contingency, what kind of ramifications they might run into. And then I teach them how I'm going to protect them from that contingency and take away their risk. Then I tie it up with a bow and I ask them if they're ready to move forward with the credit approval process, because that's my close on my phone calls with my video chats with my clients. Are you ready to move forward with the credit approval guarantee? And the answer is always yes.
And at this point, have you already gathered documents? Have you looked at their tax return, bank statements, pay stubs?
We do that as part of our pre-approval. And this, I think, is something I schedule after pre-approval. When I know they're ready to buy, then I have this meeting with them, because my thought process is if they're ready to buy, I need to make sure that I get in front of them. If I don't get in front of them, I'm going to get shocked. If I get in front of them and teach them how to win, they already know my value before they go make an offer.
Beautiful.
So that's really, really important to me.
So just since we're on this really technical masterclass here, Jason, you've met with a realtor and you've said, look, here is what I'm going to do to help your clients win. This is what I do in my process. You're also educating the realtor on things like the size of the earnest money, how long the escrow is, just all these different contingencies and ways that they can write a more competitive offer. But you tell them every time I meet with your client, I'm going to teach them these things too. And what I think everyone needs to understand is how much of a support is that to the realtor? Imagine you're the realtor and you're meeting a client at house to house to house, and then you're having to go sit at Starbucks and you're having to go through this 15-page contract and you're having to explain every single thing. And you're wanting as a realtor to help them be competitive. So you're asking them for the biggest earnest money you can get and the shortest contingencies you get, or remove the contingencies. And the client's like, oh my gosh, I'm really scared. But if Jason, not the realtor, has educated them, and Jason has demonstrated, I'm really, really, really good at this, and this is my specialty. Now, when the realtor's going over the contract, they're like, oh yeah, I know about that. Yeah, let's use that tool. Let's use that trick. Let's use this. Not only are you coaching the realtor on how to write a better offer, because how many of them don't even know how to write good offers.
I'd say it's about half.
Half. It's second. The buyer now is not making that decision in the moment, like you said, as they're learning about it, where they're feeling pressure to do something. They're actually wanting to put the pressure forward and win the deal.
It was all born out of, how do I win? Let me just elaborate. So like I was having these conversations with realtors, and what we found is the realtors were telling the clients about all this stuff, but the clients weren't willing to remove the contingencies, even though I was meeting with all these realtors to tell them about it. And so what would happen is the realtors would say it, the clients wouldn't do it. It would take them 6 or 7 offers just to get the idea that they need to remove contingencies to be competitive. So I told the realtors, like, why don't I meet with the clients? And I just started meeting with them because it was out of necessity, so that the clients would be better informed, so that they felt comfortable removing this stuff. And now that my competition is probably caught up to safely removing contingencies, they're not willing to meet at night with their clients. They're not willing to meet with every client. I'm trying to stand out and be different. And by meeting with every client, now I have something that makes me different when I'm sitting face to face with a real estate agent. I'm going to meet with your client. I'm going to help them win. They're going to be better prepared when they go write an offer. They're going to write less offers to get under contract because their offers are going to be stronger, faster, and you're going to spend less time making the same amount of money. And that seems to, I mean, it's the reality because it does work, but who wouldn't want that?
You know what I love about your approach is it's very clear. I'm here to compete. I'm here to win. I'm here to help you make money. I'm here to save you time and stress. And so often I see people running around as loan officers doing the hey girl. Like they're running around to make more friends and be like, ooh, hi, hey girl. Like, can we work together soon? Hey. And you're coming in as let's win together. Here's how I work. You're not very fluffy. You're just straight to the point. And I think it's super refreshing because let's be real, everybody is insecure. And every realtor is afraid that they're having to push the clients too much, or that the client gets spooked and they go talk to 10 other realtors or go to the next open house. So to have somebody like you on their team that's going to guide the client with them is remarkable. I want to ask you, like, what is the dream way you like to be referred? And how do you coach me as the realtor now to send you leads?
So realtors oftentimes say, yeah, I'll start giving your number to people. Like I just had this happen at a coffee meeting yesterday. And I like to call it the circle of trust text. And I'm sure you've probably talked about this in coaching circles, but the circle of trust text is essentially a group chat between the real estate agent and the client and me. And here's what I love about it. When the realtor introduces me over text and they're on the text, the client feels a little bit of pressure to respond versus me just texting them blindly. Yep. It gives me instant credibility because I'm on the group chat, and it gives them pressure to respond. And then the realtor also doesn't have to ask me if I followed up with the client because it's right there. And so it just makes everything so much easier, it streamlines everything, and it leads to better results. So I call that circle of trust text.
Great. And are you guiding them on what to say? Are you guiding them to say, hey, Jason's the best in the area. Jason is, like incredible at helping you win offers or being the most competitive. Like, what do you want them to say about you or your process? Or
I could probably do a better job of educating them on how to refer me. I have one agent that I work with particularly who always says, we're really lucky to have Jason in our market. He's one of the best in the country, and he just so happens to live in St. Louis. And so that I think is really a cool way to be introduced. I could probably do a better job of having people introduce me like that.
Cool. And what are you doing to edify the agent back to where they feel like they need to step up their game?
I'm always telling people that they're one of the best in St. Louis. I mean, I at this point in my career, I've been able to pick and choose a little bit more delicately who I do and don't work with. And so I tell them, like, you're working with one of my favorite realtors in St. Louis. They will do as good of a job, if not better, than me educating you on the process. I think everybody's fear is that they're going to buy a clunker. They're going to buy a money pit, that they're going to make a bad investment. And so, the people that I work with, I invite the real estate agent to all of my meetings. They don't ever show up, but I invite them to all of my Zoom meetings with the clients. And when they do show up, oh man, I make them look like rock stars. And I say, hey, the realtor never shows up, but your realtor took time out of their evening to show up. So just so you know, this never happens. And so that's kind of the way that I like to do that.
So the lead has come to you. It's a 3-way text. If you're closing 20 deals a month, Jason, even more than that, you're getting at least 100 leads a month. So are you personally monitoring your cell phone during the day and quickly responding and giving them the next step? Are you handing over your cell phone to one of your 2 LOAs? What does that process look like?
Shay, I think the most leads I got last year in a month was like 70.
Wow,
So
your conversion is that
we're
high.
converting really high. But
Oh,
we live in an affluent area. We work with affluent real estate agents and affluent clients. It's much easier than some markets. And there's inventory compared to like the coast, right? Both either coasts.
this is what's so super interesting. When you are selling in a $600,000, $700,000 to $800,000 price point, the rates move a half a point or a point. It demolishes the buyer field. When you're selling a $280,000 house and the rate moves a half point, the payment didn't change all that much.
Totally.
And so I know some people just really focus on volume, 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 and they want to talk about how many millions they do. You know me, I'm all about units. How many families did you serve?
Exactly. And I agree, right? Like I'm in this to win because it helps people. It helps people achieve their dream of home ownership, which then leads to wealth building. For some families, if they're first-time homeowners and they're first-generation homeowners, they're building wealth that their family never probably even dreamed of over just by being a homeowner. And so that really is the dream. And it doesn't hurt that we get paid really well to do this, but I want to help people buy houses. And the only way to do that is to help them compete against multiple offers.
100%. And I got to think you're dealing with a lot less stress because you are making that customer do the work up front. Totally. You are collecting all the documents. You're having them get educated. You're putting them through underwriting. Like I really crave to help loan officers realize that this doesn't have to be as hard. If you aren't a rainmaker and you aren't confident in going out there and asking for the business because you aren't confident in your process or what your role is in the process, and then every client you get, you follow the client's plan, not your plan, and you haven't set up your life in a way that is sustainable, like this job is way too hard and way too emotional and scary. But as you can see with Jason, he's got an outline to every single meeting. He says the same thing over and over again. He has boundaries on his time, and he's created times in the evening to even be more competitive and work with putting his daughter to bed. So it's kind of a more repeatable process. And because you teach people how to win, you get highly referred, you credit approve them up front, and maybe you have quicker closings, your conversion is way higher. So I got to ask you, how many of these people are shopping you after you've put them through this process and they're already credit approved and they've already met with you and you've coached them on how to win?
If I'm helping them win, they already know the value. They don't really care about the rate. And I tell them we'll do the shopping together. We'll share my screen. We'll look at where the rates are. We'll show them all the products that they have available to them. And I'll help them make that decision together because I'm an advisor, right? They know that they're coming to the big guns for the help. And for clients that are really, really price sensitive up front, I have no problem telling them I am not the cheapest one in the market. And I have no desire to be the cheapest one. If you want cheap service, you can work with someone cheaper than me. And I use that word specifically. Sir, I think there's a difference between cheap and less expensive. Okay. And are there cheaper options than me? Definitely. But I don't think there's anybody that's going to do what I'm going to do for the same rate or for a lower rate. You know what I mean? I think I'm actually probably less expensive than the value that I'm providing.
There you go. There's more swagger there. And a client goes, okay, you believe in your value. You're hitting it straight on. You're being transparent and you're being honest. I trust you. I want to win more than I want to save a few dollars. Yeah. And listen, you probably, just like everybody else, lose 30% of people that do want the cheapest thing, and you're not worried about it. A rainmaker says, I generate enough leads to land 70% of people who follow my process, and I trust my process, and I'm not going to worry about the 30%. I'm going to do my best, but I'm going to let them go. Totally. And love on the ones that I got.
Yeah, I hate to lose. I mean, that's still part of me. It's part of my DNA. So I'll do everything I can to compete with them. But even comparing our process and our rate sheet to other lenders, like, you don't lose that often. Like, especially if we're doing all this work up front, like we're built to win, and that's what happens.
Okay. So you get 70 leads a month. They're coming by a three-way text. Hopefully that's your ideal circumstance. You personally are responding to that text right away, or is your phone on your LOA's desk?
My LOAs don't really talk to clients very often until they've filled out the application. I'm client communication and realtor communication is 100% me. And like we talked about before we went on the call, my team is agile and efficient, and I'm a massive part of that. And the delegation just doesn't really work the way that I want to have control over the process.
Okay.
So
this is where you maintain control. And I think this is really interesting because every single person I've interviewed for the Rainmaker podcast is a bit of a control freak.
I could see that.
And I think that says, listen, we want to be self-made. We want to win. We want to be successful. But you've figured out where you want to maintain control, and you've let go and delegated and process oriented the rest. Is that correct?
Totally. I can't tell you the last time I pulled credit, to be honest. I had to this weekend, actually, I had to pull credit. I had to figure out all my credentials and everything because I don't go file side at all anymore. There's a big saying in golf is either your target side where you're thinking about where you're trying to hit the ball, or your player side, which is where you're thinking about your swing. I don't like being player side. I like being focused on the target. And just like any sport, if you're thinking about how to do it, you're probably not focused on doing it the right way, or you're probably not going to do it the right way. And so for me, I like to have that text introduction, and then I want to get the client on the phone as soon as possible, because then there's another conversation that needs to be had in order to build rapport quickly and get them into the process.
Yep.
Right. So that conversation is building rapport, making them laugh quickly, and convincing them that this is a service call, not a sales call. And so for me, what that looks like is I want you to feel really confident while you're filling out the application to come to me with any questions. Call me, text me anytime. If you have questions while you're filling out the application, I want you to feel confident you can come to me with those questions. And I think the best way to really position this call as a service call is you introduce yourself, maybe say something to make them laugh, and then you say, what's the best way I can help you today? And you maybe do the triangle of trust. You tell their realtor, tell them the person who referred you is really, really great, and ingratiate the real estate agent in a really solid, authentic way. But then I just ask, what's the best way I can help you today? A buddy of mine named Jimmy Parsons, who I'm sure you've probably talked to at some point, he likes to say, what's on your mind? And go even more open-ended. And so just getting that conversation started, people will tell you a lot more information than you need, but you can really kind of get a feel for the kind of person that they are. And then it changes the vibe from sales to service. And I think that's essential for that introductory phone call. How can you serve their needs? How can you be of service to them? And then you can get them into the process. And once they're in the process, I explain to them, part of my process is we start with an application. And then once you're pre-approved, we're going to set up a meeting, a Zoom meeting. We can do it at night if you want, where I'm going to be able to answer all of your questions. And then I'm going to teach you how to compete in a market like this. Because I'm sure you've been on Zillow. I'm sure you've been looking at houses that go first day on the market. And if you want to have a chance at doing that, I really think some coaching is necessary. And I just position it as I'm now advising you. You're now my people. I'm going to help you through this process.
So that's brilliant. You've influenced them to take the application. You've used the assumption close by saying, as you're filling out the application, I want you to feel totally confident and comfortable. Call or text me anytime. You've already put them down the road on what their next step is and what they're doing. You've also put them past down the road of getting the pre-approval, which means they've got to jump through some hoops. They've got to go into the borrower portal. They've got to fill on the online app. They've got to, upload their documents,
yep.
Whatever's going to be requested by your LOA. And then, and only then, do they get back on Jason's calendar to have this incredible coaching session to win. And you've positioned that already as the most important thing that they're going to want to do. Then they come and meet with you, and you next step them to go through credit approval. Do you need anything for credit approval? Do you just have them do a fast pack in terms of signing a disclosure or something like that?
They just sign the upfront disclosure pack in our system. It doesn't, I tell them, we're going to use worst case scenarios. So we're going to inflate the rate. We're going to make sure that we're underwriting to the worst case scenario so that we're prepared for what this market has in store for us. And then I send them paperwork. They call, and again, please call me or text me if you have any questions. I'm happy to go over it with you line by line if that's what you're looking for. They never do. They sign. We have all their paperwork already. So usually just the last step is me signing the DocuSign. Yep. And then they're in processing. And then 3 or 5 days later, we have a full credit approval. We're ready to close in 17 days. All their earnest money and inspection fees are protected. And they've probably had a meeting with me by then. So they're probably ready to go.
So the magic of that is that humans are lazy. And if they've spent all the time to talk to you and they liked you, and then they took the application, which was the next step, That's not fun. Nobody likes filling out applications for fun. Then they took a next step and they uploaded all their documents. Again, not fun, but they're doing it because they can see the value in the next step. Then they've gotten husband and wife together. They're on Zoom with you. They have this coaching conversation. You're teaching them how to win and you're answering all the questions that they have. You're safe. You're creating strategy. You're giving them clarity. You're creating urgency and excitement for them to do this. Then you say, do you want to be credit approved? Again, a next step. You've now baby stepped them through like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 into the credit approval. When they sign a loan application, they don't know that they're not locked into us. They don't know that that really means nothing. But a customer is going more and more and more and more committed to you. But every step of the way, it's a baby step. It feels safe. It feels natural. It feels like I could do that, right? And that's the method, you guys, is to getting people just down the road enough in any relationship. And when they're signing a loan application, they're going, yeah, I'm stoked on this. Like, let's do this. And this is why you're going to convert way higher for leads. This is why your buyers' agents are going to be like, I got to use Jason because these people come spit out of his process, fully underwritten, approved, more aggressive offers, highly educated. Why would I refer anybody else but Jason and this team?
Totally. And, part of the meeting at night with the clients is this might be the nicest outfit I've worn in weeks. I work from home like 100% of the time. I had to go to the office today, but I put my dog on this couch back here. I put a hoodie and a hat on, and I try and just make it like we're sitting in our living rooms talking.
You make it very comfortable. The call that I watched, it did feel very friendly. The wife was like bent over a picnic table outside and the husband was like in another place on his iPhone. And it was a short meeting that was powerful. And these have been people that have already walked through those steps with you.
Yeah, these weren't even first-time home buyers, right? They bought many houses. They still wanted to win. They wanted to buy in a really competitive school district. And who doesn't, right? The people that are buying houses right now are either running out of space and they need a new school district, or they need the same school district, or they're first-time home buyers and they're at a lower price point, so they're in competition. So the people buying houses right now are just in competition.
So being a rainmaker, was there a challenge for you? Obviously it took you a long time to actually launch and say, I'm freaking doing this. What was that breakthrough moment that made you say, it's time, I'm doing it, and I'm just going to go balls to the wall with it?
That's a good question. I think for me, that moment was 2020. We were locked in our houses and we were just churning refis. I think I did 319 units in 2020, and it was so easy. And I think I can see the beginnings of what my life looks like today then, because I had a 2-year-old and my office wall shared a wall with her bedroom, and she napped every day from 2 to 4. And I couldn't be on the phone. I'm a loud talker. So I couldn't be on the phone from 2 to 4. So I ended up playing video games for 2 hours a day, every single day of 2020, just in my basement, playing video games with my friends, and just kind of built that balance out that way. It's like, yeah, I'm like doing loans hand over fist. I have plenty of balance. I'm playing 2 hours of video games every single day. And I just think that's kind of where I fell into this rhythm of, we know how much volume we can handle. We didn't even hit our capacity in 2020. Like, we're not there right now. We got a taste for refis this year again, like a small taste. And we figured out a way to win those too. And I'll happy to tell you that some other time. We haven't really vetted that one. So I'm happy to tell you another time. In doing so, we just fell right back into it. The thing that the limiting belief I had at the end of 2020 is that refis are much easier than purchases. And that's not true. The headaches are just different. And if you're in a refi mode, you know how to handle the refi headaches. And then the purchase headaches become harder. But we had more headaches with our refis than we did with our purchases, timing things up with escrow accounts, like all the stupid little decisions you have to make on a refi that you don't have to worry about on a purchase because you have deadlines and when everything has to get done.
How has coaching impacted your journey?
Coaching is responsible for my journey. I was in coaching in 2020 as I was going through I would call it a divorce, but just a really bad partnership breakup. The only team I'd known, I've been in the same team, in the same company, in the same role my whole career. I was in coaching when I navigated that. And I had a coach named Liddell White, and we started seeing rates go up a little bit. We started seeing realtors starting to get more phone calls. And that's where my process was born in coaching. It's like, how do you stand out? What messaging do you have to real estate agents to be different than the 15 other guys, not just down the street, but the 15 people in your office that are calling these real estate agents. You have to stand out from everyone. How do you do that? And I'm 5'5". I don't stand out very well in a crowd. So I had to figure out how to do it on the phone. And that's where the pitch was kind of born was, do you want to win, or do you want to keep writing the same shitty offer? Pardon my language. You want to keep writing the same bad offers with the same clients 10 times until they're ready to write a good offer. And so that's where it was born. And then it evolved, right? Because I had a coach who loved the pitch. The pitch is the process that I explain to realtors. That's what we call it. We affectionately call it the pitch. And then it stopped being as effective. I hit a losing streak, and I started getting shopped really hard by everyone. And this is when rates were climbing to their pinnacle, probably the end of 22 into 23. And I realized, like, I'm communicating all this value to these real estate agents, and they're all grateful. They're happy to send me as many leads as they can. But the client has no clue how hard I'm working for them. So I need to figure out how to be an expert at communicating my value to the client as well. So that's how the client meeting was born. And I've literally just stuck to it for years. In fact, I have a buddy of mine who I'm in coaching with. He's actually my student, Jimmy Parsons again. He said to me one time, this is how I try to coach people. If I told you that I would give you $100,000 if you went and met with 100 realtors, how fast would you meet with those 100 realtors? And the answer is probably super freaking fast.
Yep.
And so he's like, okay, well, if you go meet with 100 realtors, you will make $100,000 more. And so Tucker Maxwell and I, he's in, I think it's Bellevue branch in Seattle. We're trying to meet with 100 realtors as fast as we can to begin the year. I think I'm at like 24 so far.
Wow.
So that's like one of the beauties of coaching, is just pushes you to keep evolving, I think is the best way to put it. Because I'm less focused on my business, more focused on my health right now. Because in focusing on business, I picked up some very unhealthy personal habits. And so my hope is to maintain both and kind of juggle them better. But that's, I think, the beauty of coaching, is it helps you elevate all those different areas that you want to focus on.
It's fantastic. And you have been so generous on teaching what you do. For a guy that's as competitive as you are and that wants to win and hates losing, you have turned and opened your playbook. You spoke at my event on stage. I've got that recorded talk. It's amazing. You've spoken for me across all of Guild Mortgage on all access calls. You spoke to all the managers. I mean, you've literally just continued to show others. And I know you're a guy who wants to lead by example and continuing sharpening your own edge. You're not somebody who rests. You're always thinking about how you can grow and improve. Final question is, where are you going next? What's your next level to get to? What's the goal?
Yeah. So my next level is, I have been really focused on my realtor and client relationships and establishing avenues for new clients. But with that comes a little bit of neglect for the clients I already have. So right now I'm trying to ramp up my past client efforts. And I'm also, well, I'll get to this in a second, but I'm focusing on hosting 2 massive client appreciation events a year.
Good.
So we're doing a pumpkin patch event in the fall, and we're going to host our first spring. We're renting out 3 movie theaters, and we're doing a day at the movies. So like 3 different movies at 3 different times. So we're going to be at the movies and invite people to come on us, give them popcorn, just a way to market to our past clients. You know, we only had like 110 people at our pumpkin patch event. But we marketed it to 15. I have 1,500 past clients. Yeah. And so the beauty is getting to market to them. And, you know, it's so funny because when your clients come to these past client events, like a third of them were like, I need to talk to you about a refi, or I need to send my neighbor to you. They feel like they kind of owe you something. So I just want to be like more in touch with the relationships that I've already spent the time at night with, you know, the people I've already built these relationships with. Those are authentic relationships. I'm not like just spouting stuff about mortgage. Like, I want to get to know these people. I want to work with them time and time again. The beauty of working with people and educating them on this process is that it hopefully gets easier the next time, and you can get deeper relationship with them the next time. So for me, that's a huge focus: past client appreciation events and just past client communication, marketing to them through HomeBot about the HELOANs and HELOCs. And that's working. We've taken off in our second mortgages. I mean, I was telling you before the call, we've been doing a ton of them. It's getting us through the winter months right now. We're doing a ton. And then the other evolution is the saying that we have in coaching is the pitch works. And so it just so happened, I happen to be, my dog has to go to the vet in a city about 2 hours away from here, where the University of Missouri is. She's fine. My dog is fine. But I was spending 8 hours in a coffee shop every 3 weeks. And if the pitch works so well in St. Louis, there's no reason it wouldn't work in Columbia. So I've started setting up appointments in Columbia, Missouri, and trying to grow in a market that I don't actually live in.
Fun.
By just doing and standing out in a way. I mean, first and foremost, it passes the time productively. But I'm hosting like an agent training on Wednesday next week if it doesn't snow too bad. And I'm going to be doing like a lot more events there. And just, I've probably met with 20 real estate agents in Columbia.
Do you have a slogan that you put on a t-shirt and wear at your client parties? Like, we help you win. What is that?
No, I haven't thought about that, but I might have to pick your brain about that in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, man, you own that slogan around winning. You might have used the word winning 54 times during the course of this call. And the truth is it's memorable and it's what everybody wants. Give them what they want. Jason, this has been a fantastic interview. I didn't even get into the underworkings and underpinnings of like, why are you driven the way you are?
Yeah, well, I have a theory about that, but it might not be appropriate for the podcast.
We'll do it over a cocktail or sparkling water in Dallas at our leadership summit.
That sounds good.
Jason Jacobs in St. Louis closed 73,261 loans this last year with Guild Mortgage, a coach at Elevate Coaching within Guild, a good buddy of mine. And I hope you really enjoyed this masterclass on providing value, having swagger, creating rules in your business. Meeting realtors in person is a rule. Meeting every single client face-to-face after pre-approval is a rule. Jason's got a process. He's confident in it and he sticks to it. And I hope the same for you. Jason, it's been a real treat. Thank you.